Welcome to Sacred Magic. Violet is on a quest to bring sacredness back into our everyday experiences. Anyone can have an extraordinary life when they are able to tap into their sacred magic within. Violet and her guests will be sharing their divine passions, inspirations, and stories of connecting with their sacred magic. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Violet Rain.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sacred Magic Podcast. My guest today, I'm the host, Violet B. Rain, and my guest today is Anthony, the Asheville medium, friend of mine. I love when I can get him to Denver, and this year we're going to do it again in July. So I love pulling him out as much as I can to Denver for in-person classes. He is a psychic, an evidential medium, a spiritualist, and 5-year member of the Church of the Living Spirit in Lilydale, New York. He's a 10-year member of the Best American Psychics. He's also a teacher, an animal communicator, a certified vibrational sound healer, and a certified past life regressionist. So he does lots of different things. So we're always excited when we get to talk to him. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you very much, Violet. Thank you for having me again. It's such a pleasure to always see you. And I'm excited to come back to your spiritual center in the Denver area and see some familiar faces and new ones because I'm teaching some good classes this year.
You are. You're here for almost 2 weeks. So
I know it.
we'll get to bathe in all your juju for a couple weeks. Last year, the students absolutely loved all of his classes and sessions. I mean, they couldn't stop talking about it. And many of them are signing up to do some more advanced programs that he's offering in Denver. So we're very excited. If you've ever been interested in mediumship, learning a little bit more, he's doing an intro class over a weekend and then an intermediate class over a weekend. So you could actually take both of those weekends if you wanted to while he's here. And then he's doing a demonstration of mediumship. So we're excited to have him do that as well. And then he's doing a psychometry class for anyone that wants to learn more about psychometry, whether you're a medium, psychic, or just somebody that's curious. And then we're going to have private sessions where you can actually book a reading with him while he's here as well. So lots of stuff in July. Most of that is already on the calendar. So we'll have the website in this video and in all the descriptions so you can go and check out all the offerings. But today, I wanted to chat with you about what is psychometry for people listening that have never heard that term, have no idea what it is, and why is that such a great class for anyone that might be interested?
Well, psychometry, first of all, is when you are able to blend your energy with either an object in front of you. That could be a photograph, that could be an object that reminds you of somebody or an experience. It could be a piece of jewelry that has been, inherited and handed down and gifted to you. Or it could be anything that's been maybe gifted to you from someone else. It could be a photograph um, of your relative, or it could be a friend or a family member. But what you're doing is it could be read two ways. It could be read psychically and it could be read mediumistically. So psychically is when we're able to blend our energy, our auric field, with the object and be able to get vibrations, sensations. You would get, you know, visions, maybe a snippet of an experience. You might get, memories associated with it as well. And what you're doing is you're reading the object psychically. Mediumistically, you would be connecting with, obviously, it would have to be from someone who had passed in your life and crossed over to the spirit world. It could be a friend or a relative. It would not be a spirit guide or anything like that. It would be someone who had lived here in the physical world. So that would be a photograph or an object that had been gifted to you, or an object that reminds you of somebody that maybe you purchased yourself, that reminds you of that person in spirit. So what you would be doing, again, is you're blending your energy and reading the object mediumistically. So you're using mediumship to connect with the spirit in the spirit world who's telling you about the object, the memories associated to it. You would get the personality of that person in spirit. They would tell you how they passed, and why this object was gifted to you, or why all the memories that are associated to the object. They probably would tell you also some information that they're still around you right now, and telling me where the object is in your home, or they would tell you, or whoever's reading the object, they would tell you specific information of where it's kept in your home. And that proves that they're still around you now.
I love
So
that.
so there's two different ways of reading it. And um, I really believe, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of thinking when I'm looking over here. um, I really believe that psychometry is such a foundation to mediumship. It also is such a foundation to reading psychically. So in this class, we are going to be reading psychically and mediumistically. So I'm going to get the students to understand the difference in the class. So, everyone will need to bring like 3 objects. You can bring 2. I would like you to bring 3. That could be a photograph of someone that has departed into the spirit world, or maybe someone that you is still living, so we can read it psychically. And 2 objects. One object that would be from someone that has gifted you something that's still here, and another object that maybe reminds you of someone that's passed in the spirit world, or it's an object's been gifted to you from that person, or it could be a photograph of that person in spirit. This way, you're able to read in both uh, arenas. The class is great because the reason psychometry is so important is because when you start reading for someone, say either psychically or mediumistically, and even if you've had already psychic and medium classes in your or workshops in your past, that you've already taken, what the psychometry does is it's able for you as the psychic or the medium to not be intimidated by sitting in front of an exercise with another person sitting only 2 feet away from you. Okay. That seems to be always what is the most uncomfortable that you have to get used to, is sitting so close to someone in these exercises in the class. And they're doing is sitting there and staring at you, right? And writing notes down on the notepad that they're not sharing with you, whether they're yeses and nos. And it's quite, it's a quite intimidating, and you sometimes get a little anxiety, which gets in the way of your psychic and your mediumship. Psychometry, there's nothing there to intimidate you, because you're not looking at the person anymore sitting across from you. You're focusing all your energy on the object, which is far less intimidating. So it gets you to use your muscles of how to work psychically, and use your muscles on how you're working mediumistically in whichever exercise we're doing. And it also allows you to get in touch with what part psychically that you have developed and how you work, okay? Or mediumistically, how you work. You're going to be able to blend with spirit, I think, easier with the object versus having to sit across from someone, okay? And so it's less intimidating. The whole experience is less intimidating. And it's fun. We kind of make it fun. We don't want to be so serious, you know. We want it to be like, let's see where this takes us. Let's see what I'm capable of achieving. Um, and it also, I think psychometries it allows you, excuse me, to go deeper in with the details, either psychically when you're reading psychically or psychically when you're dealing with mediumship, because the spirit will take you and show you the details psychically. Even though you're working in the mediumship, the spirit will take you and show you the details. So the psychometry is allowing you to trust spirit to take you on the journey of that information when you're working mediumistically. So I find it very interesting. And I had an instructor at Arthur Findlay College teach me how to work that way. And not too many people are teaching it that way. And I just thought, you know what? This is how I work. Um, and I find that it gives me a lot more details and accuracy, and it allows you to stand out as the psychic and allows you to stand out as the medium.
So I've got a big question for you.
Yes.
Can anyone learn how to do this?
Well, we're all psychic, okay? We're all psychic. We that's part of our it's part of our senses. A lot of times, you know, we lose that psychic sense or that third eye connection, because, you know, we're programmed kind of by the time we're about 5 years old or 6 years old, we're already getting pressures of how to act and what to say and what to believe, and what colors to associate with us as, you know, as a sex, right? As a human. And so there's all these molds that start developing at this time. But you'll notice that children are far more perceptive, small children are perceptive to psychic and mediumship. I've run across many of my clients who have, you know, a grandson or a granddaughter who said that, you know, grandpa's here. And she'll say, Grandpa, like, you've never met any of your grandpas. They passed away before you were born. And he'd say, your dad, Grandpa, is here. I spoke to him yesterday. And, you know, they would go through a photo album and he had never seen any of these pictures. And he points out who Grandpa is in that photo album. So that tells me that, you know, we're far more open at that particular time before, you know, we get programmed, and, you know, we're affected by our parents, um, our community, and so these pressures start very early because it's part of our development. But deep down inside, everyone's able to read psychically. I think it's something that, um, you know, it just needs to be sparked up again. It's a muscle that hasn't been used. And some people read differently psychically. Some through clairvoyance, so they're able to see objects or memories or snippets of things or places or things. Some people read, you know, clairaudiently, so they hear things. They hear voices, maybe. They hear sounds. Um, some people are, you know, reading clairsentient. So they're getting in with their feelings, like I feel something. I feel that this feels a certain way. This feels joyous. This feels it doesn't feel right. It may feel mysterious. It may feel confusing. It might feel loving. And so then there's people who may, that read in claircognizance, so that there's an inner knowing, like I get this deep gut feeling and I know this does not feel right, or I love the energy of the room. Oh my gosh, I love this. And there's just this deep knowing. Um, and so typically, I would say most people have two of these senses that are already clicking in their life, but they sometimes just, think it's maybe coincidence. I think it's great to explore, to see, just, if you've had any of these coincidences where you think of somebody and the phone rings and it's them on the phone, like a minute later, or you're at work and you haven't seen somebody, that a client of yours that you haven't seen in 2 years, and all of a sudden you think of them while you're working for whatever reason. They just pop up in your mind and you're like, why am I thinking about that person? And within 5 minutes they walk in the front door of your business and they're like, hey, I'm in town, I just wanted to say hi. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about you. That is not a coincidence. That was a hit that you got psychically, and that energy of that person you were feeling, and you saw them in your clairvoyance. You knew that's why it freaked you out and gave you the aha moment, is because you were like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe I could do that. you know so I there's going to be students that are going to want to come to this class, that are going to want to explore. And I feel that there are mediums that are out there that, believe it or not, um, have work to do on their psychic. um, they can be good mediums, but because they can't ask the right questions, they're not getting the right details. And the psychometry and the psychic, the foundation of psychic development, gives you the foundation of working psychically. So you're having to work harder than working in mediumship, believe it or not, because it's all you. I mean, you can work psychically with cards, and you can use pendulums, and you can use, other different kinds of modalities or tools. Okay. But I teach you psychically how to work from within. Okay. So you're not using any tools to rely on. It's just you, which is far harder you know, than being guided with the tools, right? To give you some of the answers. Um, so the psychometry helps to bring the details of your psychic into your mediumship. That's how I feel. It makes you work harder.
I
Okay.
like that explanation. I mean, if you think about, you said a few things that I wanted to talk about is children. Think about children under the age of 7 that see
Mhm.
things that everybody else in the room doesn't see. I mean, it doesn't take a really smart person to figure out that grandpa or uncle or aunt or whatever is standing there and nobody's noticing. You notice it, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody's paying attention to it. Nobody's answering it. And eventually the child's like, wait a minute, why do I see that person and nobody else sees that person? Or why do I have that conversation and nobody else is having, it doesn't take brilliance to figure out you're different than the rest of the people in the room. And we're so impressionable as a child that we want to be accepted. We want to be understood. We're going to quickly adapt and mold to the expectations of everyone around us. And eventually we shut that down and we close it off. And as adults, just as you were mentioning, somebody comes to my mind. What if they were thinking about you and that connection happens? And then all of a sudden they show up and you're like, ooh. And we just think that's coincidence. And it's not. It's this energetic connection that we have with people in our lives that we can connect with. Or I have a gut feeling that I should go left today. I don't know why I should go left, but I need to go left. Or you just don't know why you're running late that morning. And maybe it has nothing to do with you running late. It has to do with spirits keeping you safe, because if you left at the time you were supposed to, you don't know what would have happened. Maybe running late, unless you're running late all the time. Now that's a whole different thing. But if some odd time you're running late and you never run late, maybe there's a message in there that you may not ever understand, but they were protecting you. They were keeping you safe. They were doing something. And we all have these instincts. I love my students that their hair stands up and they're like, "Woo, that was a yes." Right? We all have different ways that we feel it in our body that we know. And I think one of the key things is for us to get curious. Just get curious. Want to discover and explore. No, expectations that you have to be able to do this and you have to be, we all have this thing where we want to be perfect. I totally get that because we go to a class, especially think about me going into a class. I want to be perfect because there's my students in the class. And I have to realize that I'm human. Okay. Perfection is not the expectation. It's about being curious and having fun with it. Because the more you can let loose of all those expectations and binds and control and perfection that we all hold on to and just have fun with things, this comes in a lot easier when you can just say, hey, I don't care whether I can or I can't. I'm going to try and I'm going to play with this and I'm going to be curious and I'm going to be open to what happens. You will be amazed at what you can do. I guarantee it. Every class. Wow, I can't believe I just did that. Yes, you can if you just let go of those expectations and just play and lean into it. And I know you see this a lot because you came out last year and I'm like, Anthony, I'm really nervous to go to your class. And he's like, why? Well, because my students are there and I need to be able to do this. And, my students even said, even months later, I can't believe you were in class with us. And I said, I'm curious too. I can always learn. We can always learn, people, no matter how many years you've been doing what you do. You can always learn a new style, a new approach, a new perspective, a new way, a new nugget. We're all supposed to be here to grow and evolve, and that takes us investing in us. And this is my personal opinion, you're not a great teacher or a professional if you're not continuing to stretch yourself, to learn something new, to try a new perspective, because that's how we all grow. And I guarantee you, Anthony takes continual classes somewhere. I know that I take classes all the time. I find things I'm like, oh, that's curious. I want to go see what their approach is, different than mine. Be open. And I'm not there to teach. I'm there to see what's different or what I can learn from that individual and hold space and honor them for their teachings. We all need that. And so that's my thing. And I'm sure you get students all the time. They want to be perfect. They want to control it. And then they close it down because this is all about flow.
It is. And it's a good point. We have to we have to continuously grow. Even if you're an advanced medium, you're not going to know it all because first of all, Spirit's going to be teaching you how how to interpret things differently. They're going to come in through a different way than they usually do. It's not routine every single time for a reading or a demonstration. They choose to use different um, Well, different images, because they basically when you're connecting with spirit, you are, reading a side language. So you're reading it audit, through clairaudience and through clairvoyance and through your feelings and your inner knowings, and so there's a lot going on there, and but they're giving you, you know new feelings or new experiences or new images or new sounds or new words in their description of the messages that they're, that I'm interpreting from spirit and then relaying to the client. And so I'm learning constantly. It's never the same thing for every reading. Um, and I think, like you said, taking other classes is really important because, okay, so you're going to take an advanced mediumship class, or, and, you're an advanced medium. Well, you're going to go study with Paul Jacobs, or, if you've been doing mediumship for a long time, you're going to want to go to study with somebody who teaches advanced and who's worked with people who are advanced mediums. So for me to take classes now, I go for the top now. So I'm going with people who teach this all over the world if I'm going to go study a class, because most of the time when I'm taking classes, at most places, I feel like I've already done that already, right? Um, so I want to be able to learn from different people and get maybe a couple tidbits here, or maybe a different way or a different approach, or um maybe I haven't thought of mediumship in this arena before, but the rest of everything else I've done before. Okay, great, but you've learned something still. You're going to get to a point where, yeah, I mean, you've heard this, or you've done this, or it's been repeated, but everybody teaches differently because everybody works differently. So there might be something that you're going to learn from someone. And even if it's an intermediate medium, say, we talk about the philosophy of mediumship and the inspirational speaking, and we talk about the science of mediumship, and of course then the spiritual path. So there's always a different approach or a different direction or philosophy or science, or I never thought of that being that way, or never looked at it that way. Say for instance, this is just an example. So, we always think about the medium just being able to connect with spirit, right? And there's a lot of ways that spirit communicates through the average citizen, right? So let's say we can think about someone who is a musician, and they are really into the groove. They're in the zone, they're feeling the music, they're playing the music. They are getting an interpretation or a download from spirit, so they are connecting in a mediumship way. And some people are like, I never thought of it that way. And you can see it because they're in a slightly trance state of mind, right? And when we do mediumship, we are even though we're very much alert of our surroundings, we are still in a slightly altered state of mind when we're connecting with spirit. And so your analytical mind gets out of the way and the altered state comes in. Well, it's the same way when you're playing an instrument. You're not thinking about paying your bills and the things that you have to do tomorrow, as far as like um your duties around the house, right? Your responsibilities. You were in that moment, right? You're into it. You could see the person feeling it. They are in connection with the spirit world, right? You can see when someone's in the garden and they're they're in a different place, and somehow they're they're not thinking about their life, their responsibilities, what they have to do later, what they're going to have to cook for dinner, who they have to pick up at the airport. They are there in their zone. I can use this even for people who sing, like on stage. Um, I've known people who did this for did professional singing for Broadway, and they would tell me, Anthony, there's a time where I do the same thing over and over and over again, and there was a moment where I actually thought about, oh, I forgot to pick up my dry cleaning today while I was singing. And then there was a moment where they kind of forgot where they left off. And they had a moment of panic for about 2 seconds. And Spirit would say to them, oh, you left off here. And they trusted it every single time. They don't know how they got that information. That's because Spirit stepped in to remind them where they were. And that's what I've heard from. They don't know, they don't really recognize it as spirit. They just heard a voice, or they got a feeling or a sensation from something that told them where they left off. Okay. So there are lots of ways that spirit, the spirit world works with us, and you don't have to be a medium to experience these things. I did hair for many, many years before I did mediumship, or even realized I was a medium. I've always been a medium, but there's a aha moment where you're kind of like, why is all this happening to me? And you research about yourself, and then there's the unfoldment, and then you take classes, and you're still in denial, and it just takes time before. It's not like you wake up one day and say, oh, I'm a medium. I took 2 workshops. No. um, anyway, but people would say when I did hair, I would be so focused in on my haircut. And I've had several people tell me, who are professional hairstylists, who did platform haircutting on stage for different hair companies. And they would say, you're following the technique to do this inverted bob in the back, but my neckline is the most difficult thing that I've ever had to deal with. And nobody can cut that neckline right with my inverted bob, right? My graduated bob. And this is a woman from New York who has been to Fifth Avenue and been to all these salons, and she couldn't find anybody to cut her nape of her hair so that this haircut would lay down. I was the only person to do it. And she says to me one day, and I always remember this, because she says, there's something that you're doing that nobody else is doing. You're getting a download of something, because I know haircutting, and I've watched you many times do the same haircut, and that's why I'm in your chair, is because, yeah, we work together and we've done things on stage, but when I've sat there waited for you, for us to go to, a hair show or a class that we're teaching together, I saw you do the same haircut on a client, and I was sitting there watching you, and you're in a zone going somewhere else, and you're doing something that nobody else is doing. So you're getting your information on how to cut that neckline differently. And that's why I trusted you. And I knew that you're the one. So that was going to get it right. So I always remember that. And I was like, wow, I was downloading information, which I was, because someone was telling me, don't do this and do this while I was cutting that nape.
Okay. I think that's awesome. Awesome. I think songwriters and artists,
or even
painters,
chefs,
everybody,
or even,
chefs,
painters, right?
Everything,
right. Well, and there's people who draw and paint in spirit art. There's mediums that can actually connect with spirit and then draw your loved one at the same time, which is an amazing skill. I've seen it many times. I have a few friends that do this. And so, as an artist, and you don't have to be a medium, but you're still downloading what you need to tweak, or what you're envisioning And your love and your energy is the whole point of this, is that your love, your energy and your inspiration and the intention behind what you're doing is going into that photograph or that haircut or that gardening or that singing or that instrument. It's really quite beautiful.
I love that. I love that. So if you're listening, you don't have to have a special talent. Just come and be curious, play with us, and try. We have our psychometry class and lots of other events. We will have the website along the bottom of this and in the description where you can check everything out. This is all happening in South Denver in July. And so we would love to see you there. You can also check out Anthony's website, which I will put on there for his events and programs that he has, because he's out traveling sometimes and can be in a place near you if you just check his schedule. Anthony, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you in a few months.
You're welcome. I just wanted to add to that. We had students in your class that were not able to, that were very analytical. And within the end of the 2-day class, they were very amazed that they were able to read psychically and be able to see for the first time clairvoyantly. Remember, they were in tears actually, because they were like, wow, this was such a an eye-opening breakthrough for them. If you're interested in looking at my classes, you just go to ashvillemedium.com on my 2026 events and workshops page on my website. You'll see it all there. And I'll be in New York and Lilydale next month. So I'm on the East Coast here next month. And then I'll be out to you in July.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to see you. Spend some time. He's got a favorite Italian restaurant here from his last visit that he keeps telling me, we really have to go back there, Violet. We really have to go back there.
We do. The service was great. The people were so nice. The food was excellent. I was like, wow, this is really good. I mean, we just don't have good Italian food here. I mean, we do in Asheville, but I live 20 miles outside of Asheville. And so, you have to drive into Asheville, which is always, there's a lot of traffic. So anyway, we stick by the closeness of town in Hendersonville.
Well, you have safe travels to Denver in a couple of months. Have an amazing time in Lilydale in New York in June.
Thank you.
We will see you in a few months. Those listening, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Anthony, for sharing your sacred magic. I wish everyone a sacred magical week. Please like, comment, follow us on your favorite channels. We would love to see you. We're getting close to 200 episodes, so we have lots of episodes on this podcast. So just check it out and have a sacred and magical week.
Thank you for joining us. To find out more about Violet, head over to discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. You can also send a personal message to Violet through email, violet@discoveryourspiritualgifts.com. If you love the show, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. Until next time, remember, we are meant to have abundant and joyful lives. We hope to see you soon at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.